Hello everyone. Today we discuss about the law of demand. The concept of demand. First of all, we discuss about this. Demand for a commodity refers to the desire to buy a commodity backed with sufficient purchasing power and the willingness to spend. For example, you desire to have a car, but you do not have enough money to buy it. Then this desire will remain just a wishful thinking. It will not be called demand. If, in spite of having enough money, you do not want to spend it on car, demand does not emerge. The desire becomes demand only when you are ready to spend money to buy car. Now the concept of demand. In economics, demand refers to effective demand, which implies three things: desire, means to purchase, and unwillingness to use those means for that purchase. Now, features of demand: desires and demand. Demand is the amount of commodity for which a consumer has willingness and ability to buy. Demand and price. Demand is always at a price. Unless price is stated, the commodity has no meaning. The consumer must know both the price and the commodity. Point of time. The amount demanded must refer to some period of time, such as 10 kg of rice per week. The demand, the amount of demanded and price must refer to a particular date. Utility. Demand depends upon utility of the commodity. A consumer is rational and demands only those commodities which provide utility. Now, objectives of demand analysis. Demand forecasting. Forecasting of demand is the art of predicting demand for a product or a service at some future date on the basis of certain present and past behavior patterns of some related events. Production planning. Demand analysis is prerequisite for the production planning for a business firm. Expansions of output of the firm should be based on the estimates of likely demand. Otherwise, there may be overproduction and consequent losses may have to be faced. Sales forecasting. Sales forecasting is based on the demand analysis. Control of business. For controlling the business, it is essential to have a well conceived budgeting of cost and profits that is based on the estimation of annual demand or sales and prices. Now, objectives of demand: inventory control. A satisfactory control of business inventories requires satisfactory estimates of the future requirements, which can be traced through demand analysis. Growth and long term investment programs. Demand analysis is necessary for determining the growth rate of the firm and long term investment planning. Economic planning and policy making. Demand analysis at macro level for the nation as a whole is of great help. The government can determine its import and export policies in view of the long term demand, forecasting and estimation for various goods in the country. Now, demand and quantity demanded. The term demand refers to various quantities of commodity that the consumer is ready to buy at different possible prices of a commodity. The term quantity demands refer to a specific quantity to be purchased against a specific price of a commodity. Quantity demand is the demand schedules and demand curve. Demand schedule is that schedule which expresses the relation between different quantities of the commodity demanded at different price. According the table relating to price and quantity demanded is called the demand schedule, and demand curve is simply a graphic representation of demand schedule. The demand curve represents the maximum quantities per unit of time that consumer will take at various prices. Demand schedule and demand curves are two types, and the demand functions or determinants of demand. Demand function shows the relationship between demand for a commodity and its various determinants. It shows how demand for a commodity is related to, say, price of the commodity or income of the consumer or other determinants. There are two types of demand function: individual demand functions, market demand functions. Demand functions, individual demand functions. Individual demand functions shows how demand for a commodity by an individual consumer in the market is related to its various determinants. It is so, and determinants of demand, factors affecting demand. Price of commodity. The law of demand states that other things being constant, the demand of the commodity is inversely related to its price. It implies that rise in price of commodity brings about a fall in its purchase and vice versa. Now, determinants of demand, factors affecting demand. Price of related goods. Demand for a commodity is also influenced by change in price of related goods. These are two types. Substitute goods. These are the goods which can be substituted for each other, such as tea and coffee, or ball pen and ink pen. In case of such goods, increase in the price of one causes increase in the demand for the other, and decrease in the price of one causes decrease in the demand or for the other. Determinants of demand, factors affecting demand. Complementary goods. Complementary goods are those which complete the demand for each other and therefore demanded together. For example, pen and ink, car and petrol. In case of complementary goods, a fall in the price of one causes increases in the demand for the other, and rise in the price of one causes decrease in the demand for others. Determinants of demand, factors affecting demand. Income of the consumer. The ability commodity depends upon the income of the consumer. When the income of the consumer increases, they buy more, and when the income falls, they buy less. Expectations. If the consumer expects that price in future will rise, he will buy more quantity in present at the existing price. Likewise, if he hopes that price in future will fall, he will buy less quantity in present or may even postpone his demand. Determinants of demand factors and affecting demand. Taste and preferences. Taste and preferences include fashion, customs, etc. Taste and preferences can be influenced by advertisement, change in fashion, climate, new inventions, etc. Other thing being equal, demand for those goods increases for which consumer develop taste and preference. Contrary to it, if a consumer has no taste or preference for a product, its demand will decrease. Population size. Demand increases with the increase in production, populations, and decreases with decrease in population. Compositions of population male female ratio also affects the demand. Female population increases, demand for goods meant for women will go up. Distribution of income. If income is equally distributed, there will be more demand. If income is not equally distributed, there will be less demand. In case of unequal distribution, most will not have enough money to buy things. Now, the law of demand. The law of demand states that other things being constant and categories, the demand for a good extends with a decrease in price and contracts with an increase in price. In other words, there is an inverse relationship between quantity demanded of a commodity and its price. The term other thing being constant implies that income of the consumer, his taste and preferences, and price of other related goods remain constant. Assumption law of demand. Taste and preferences of the consumer remains constant. There is no change in the income of the consumer. Prices of the related goods do not change. Consumer do not expect any change in the price of the commodity in near future. Now, income effect. Income effect refers to change in quantity demanded when real income of the buyer changes as a result of change in price of the commodity. Change in the price of a commodity causes change in real income of the consumer. With a fall in price, real income increases according demand for the commodity expands. Now, substitutions effect. Substitutions effect refers to substitutions of one commodity for the other when it becomes relatively cheaper. Size of consumer group. When price of a commodity falls, it attracts new buyers who now can afford to buy it. Different uses. Many goods have alternative uses. Milk, for example, is used for making curd, cheese and butter. If price of milk reduces, its uses will expand. According to demand for milk expands. In certain cases, the demand curve slopes up from left to right, that is, it has a positive slope. Under certain circumstances, consumers buy more when the price of a commodity rises and less when price fall. Many causes are attributed to an upward sloping demand curve. Now, the Giffen goods, a study of a poor farmers of Ireland by Sir Giffen in 19th century, revealed that the major portion of their income was spent on potatoes and only a small amount was spent on meat. So potatoes were cheap but meat was costly. When the prices of potatoes tend to increase, consumption of meat was curtailed to economics their expenditure, and as a result of these they saved money and spent more on potato to meet their food deficiency. In this way, quantity purchase rises even when prices of potatoes rises. Now, emergencies. During emergencies such as war, natural calamity, flood, drought, earthquake, etc., the law of demand becomes ineffective. In such situation, people often fear that the storage, the shortage of the essential